Hello and welcome to the news. To present, my name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Top stories in the news: the opposition UPND has cancelled its planned Kanyama rally in Lusaka in view of the cholera outbreak in the area. National Development Minister Lucky Mulusa faces disciplinary action for issuing disparaging remarks on the 42 fire tenders procured by government. And government has challenged opposition political parties to join in finding solutions to the country's socio-economic challenges. The news in detail. The Opposition United Party for National Development UPND has cancelled its planned Kanyama rally in which it was scheduled for this Sunday in view of the cholera outbreak in the area. UPND Lusaka Province Chairperson Bob Sakahilu says the party has since notified the police on the cancellation of the rally. Dr. Sakahilu says the party, in consultation with Lusaka Province Police Commissioner Nelson Piri, had decided to put off the rally following health concerns. And Health Minister Chitalu Chilufya said he had engaged the opposition party leadership and advised them not to go ahead with the rally in line with the Public Health Act. Dr. Chilufya says the Public Order Act bars all public gatherings in instances of a contagious disease outbreak. He says the rally could pose a high risk of further disease spread. Dr. Chilufya says with Kanyama having 77 cases from the reported 125, it is only prudent that all public gatherings in the area are banned. He says the decision is not politically motivated, but aimed at safeguarding public health.
They understand that this action that the Ministry of Health is doing is in public health interest. It's for public health reasons. Cholera is a bipartisan issue. Health is a bipartisan issue, and we all need to unite across the political divide to ensure that no citizen succumbs to any disease. So in situations like this, it's not time to look at who belongs to which party, who belongs to which church. This is a non-partisan issue. That's why we have not gone with force and say, we have banned you from doing this rally. We have engaged the UPND. But we must emphasize that in engaging the UPND, we are saying it is not negotiable. It is not negotiable. It is provided for under the law for the Minister of Health to take action to protect the public from ill health. So acting as provided for under the Public Health Act, I have said there shall be no mass gathering in Kanyama because it will fuel the outbreak. And so the UPND have been accordingly advised, and the Ministry of Home Affairs have been accordingly advised.
Meanwhile, cholera cases in Lusaka have continued to rise, with the cases now standing at 125. Ministry of Health spokesperson Dr. Maximilian Weupe has told a media briefing that 53% of the recent cases are children below 2 years. He says Matero, Chawama, 10 miles, and the other areas where new cases have been reported in at least 24 hours. Dr. Weupe says cholera cases remain restricted to Lusaka province so far, but that other provinces in the country have been put on high alert and advised to maintain hygiene. He adds that the ministry has since disinfected 114 water wells and 43 houses in various affected areas. Dr. Weupe has since advised the public against public gatherings and buying already cooked food from the street.
The total number of cases that we have seen since the outbreak started is 125. The majority of the patients that we have seen are children less than 2 years old. That's 53% of them are children below the age of 2 years. As it is now, to break down into the particular areas where we've had this outbreak, In the Chipata sub-district, the cholera outbreak, we have had no new cases which were admitted in the last 24 hours. The total number of cases we have seen in Chipata sub-district are 27, and of these, 2 tested positive for cholera when we take to the lab and culture. There has been no death declared in Chipata. Kanyama, the outbreak began on the 8th of October. Again, in the last 24 hours, we had seen no new cases. And the health facility continues with active surveillance.
The Civil Society Constitution Agenda CISCA has commended the UPND for cancelling their planned rally due to the cholera outbreak in some parts of Lusaka, including Kanyama. CISCA chairperson Bishop John Mambo says it could have been impossible for the UPND to achieve its purpose when people are scared. Bishop Mambo has since advised the opposition party to take advantage and visit cholera patients and provide them with the necessities they need.
Even with cholera, it's a case on us. We are declared a Christian nation. We have no floods in this country. India is highly populated. You don't hear of cholera. But because we don't put our houses in order, our priority are ups and down. So for so doing, they should be given a plus. Not because they're UPND, any political party or any gathering. We've gone to an extent now that I cannot shake your hand. How do you not shake the hand of a Christian nation? The cholera itself, it does show that there's something wrong within the system. You shouldn't talk about cholera this time around. My father died of a cholera, but it was in a village. They didn't even know what cholera was all about. I didn't bury my dad. So when you talk of cholera, you remind me of a painful thing in this world, because he died going to touch those who are dying of cholera in a village and they didn't know about it. Later on we learned of cholera. So the idea of just cholera, it means our priority are wrong. Cancelling any big gathering, big church and so forth, they should. Actually, we should mourn with those who are dying of cholera, because these are good people and there's no dignified burial. You throw them like, anything. But we should learn from these countries who are friendly to us. India, how are you containing cholera? You go to big countries like Malaysia and all that. They don't have this cholera. We are still fighting.
National Development Planning Minister Lucky Mulusa faces disciplinary action for disparaging the procurement of the 42 fire tenders by government at a total cost of $42 million, which he likened to wheelbarrows. Vice President Inonge Wina says the matter will be considered under the Ministerial Code of Conduct and other disciplinary measures that government will deem fit to apply. Ms. Wina was responding to a question by Chimwemwe Member of Parliament Elias Mwila during the Vice President's question time, who wanted to know whether Mr. Mulusa will be asked to resign for going against Cabinet's principle of collective responsibility. And the Vice President has disclosed that 192 pregnant women are amongst asylum seekers who have entered the country through Chiengi district in Luapula province, fleeing the instability in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ms. Wina has told Parliament that unaccompanied children are also among the asylum seekers entering the country. She says while this situation has created a humanitarian crisis in the country, government through its agencies has mobilized resources to tackle the problem. Ms. Wina adds that the UN agencies, working together with the Zambia Red Cross Society and government agencies, have brought the situation under control.
Madam Speaker, I regret that I was not privy to the statement that was made by Honorable Mulusa, but being what it is, and having received some reports regarding the statement that the minister has made, there are certain channels that we use in this government and in the party to discipline our erring ministers or members of parliament. the Ministerial Code of Conduct, this matter will be considered, and under other disciplinary measures that government will deem fit to apply in this particular situation. There has been a number of people running away from political conflict in their country, crossing the border, especially in Chienge, to seek asylum in Zambia. And among these asylum seekers, Madam Speaker, is a large number of children who walk all the way from wherever they come from in the Congo into Zambia, unaccompanied by their parents. We have also a large number of pregnant women. As of last week, the number totaled 192 pregnant women who have walked to Zambia to seek asylum.
Energy Minister David Mabumba has maintained that the recent fuel price adjustment was necessary. Mr. Mabumba has told Parliament in a ministerial statement that this is in order to ensure that fuel prices are cost reflective and that the country does not revert to the old system of having the subsidy on fuel, as was the case before the 14th of October 2016. He states that dealing with the landed cost of the petroleum product, which accounts for 46% of the overall pricing structure, will go a long way on having an impact on the end user. Mr. Mabumba says government is taking all the necessary measures to lower the price of fuel, including tendering the procurement of petroleum products on a quarterly basis so as not to be locked into long-term contracts. He points out that Kenya and Tanzania, who procure petroleum products on a monthly basis, have suppliers competing on the basis of margins. Mr. Mabumba was responding to a follow-up question by Mazabuka Member of Parliament Garin Kombo, who asked why government cannot remove the 25% import levy on finished petroleum products so that fuel can be cheaper in the country.
At the moment, on the 17th of October 2017's price adjustment, petrol is standing at 12.97, which shows an absolute variance of 0.73 or a percentage reduction of 5.33. Diesel in October 2016 was at 11.40, and in October 2017, it is at 11.09, which showed an absolute variance of 0.31 or a percentage reduction of 2.72. Kerosene in October 2016 was at 8.03, and in October 2017, it is at 7.82, which shows a variance of 0.21 or a percentage reduction of 2.62. Low sulfur gas oil or diesel in October 2016 was at 13.69, and in October 2017, it is at 13.39 with an absolute variance of 0.31 or a percentage reduction of 2.6. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I want to emphasize that the recent fuel price adjustment was necessary in order to ensure that fuel prices were cost effective and that we do not revert to the old system of having the subsidy on fuel, as was the case before 14th October 2016.
Opposition United Party for National Development UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema has charged that President Edgar Lungu lacks the moral authority and desire to fight corruption. Mr. Hichilema says recent allegations of corruption in government made by former Information and Broadcasting Services Minister Chishimba Kambwili should be taken seriously by all well-meaning Zambians. He says the allegations by the wrong member of parliament have vindicated him when he said that the Patriotic Front government is a corrupt regime. Mr. Hichilema says Mr. Kambwili has authenticated what the UPND has been saying, that there is too much corruption in the current leadership. He tells Q News that President Lungu's fight against corruption is mere deception, as he lacks the leadership to fight graft in the country. Mr. Hichilema has promised Zambians that he would fight corruption like never before once in government, using strategies and the plan he has for the country.
So Chishimba has vouched, has, if you like, authenticated what we've been saying for a long time. Again, the solution from UPND is zero tolerance on corruption. You can't have people making so much money when they went into government so poor. In 2 years now, 2.5 years, they're so rich through corruption. And in 2 years or so, Zambians are poorer than they were that time. So Zambians are poorer, but funding those in State House and in government ministries to live lavishly, to fly all over the world when we are all in pain. You need a leadership, you need a party like UPND that understands that politics is not a source of livelihood. Politics is not something we pursue in UPND for 30 pieces of silver, for vehicles. No, we pursue politics to save the people of Zambia. And that's why we'll have zero tolerance as UPND on corruption. So we can save the money on fuel, save the money on electricity that have increased through corruption, to invest in health, in education, in clean water, in job creation, growing the economy, entrepreneurship. That's the difference that we bring to the table. We've said this over and over, and I'm sure
Chief Government Spokesperson Kampamba Mulenga has urged opposition political parties to join government in finding solutions to the social and economic challenges the country is facing. She says opposition political parties have failed to provide solutions to the challenges the country is faced with. Ms. Mulenga says the opposition must not seek to hinder the work of the government, but rather endeavor to encourage the government to improve. She states that the role of the opposition is to provide checks and balances on the government's policies as well as actions, and also provide an alternative solution to the government rather than just criticizing. Ms. Mulenga adds that the opposition must present themselves as the alternative government in waiting, thus the need to be responsible and constructive in their opposition to the government.
Our president is saying we can start on a new chapter. We need to develop, and what we must be reminded is that PF is in government in the next coming 4 years. So we need to put that past, and all of us, whether we are coming from opposition political parties, to develop those constituencies, to develop on the promises that we had told our people during the campaigns. We need government. So we need to put past that. So yes, we need the checks and balances, and this government is open to constructive criticism, and that is the role of the opposition. And of course you can tell me that in the 1 year government has done nothing good. So even us as a government, it would only be prudent that even as they put up these criticisms, they offer solutions. They should just not criticize and say, no, this government is doing nothing. Surely with the massive, today we are here doing the groundbreaking of a specialized hospital. You mean there is nothing good about it? So for us as a government, we will soldier on, because we believe that God reigns on this throne. So with or without them, if they want to tag behind, which will be very sad, because at the end of the day, for us to govern a nation, we need a people. So let us put our interests aside and begin to think about the people that...
The Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, in Eastern Province has urged government to save the 261 jobs at Kagio Chipata Ginnery. CSPR Eastern Province Coordinator Maxon Nkoma has told QTV News via telephone that it is devastating to learn that the sale of Kagio Ginnery to Paroget Limited has resulted in mass job losses for the people of Chipata District. Mr. Nkoma says CSPR has been following events surrounding the sale of Kagio to Paroget with keen interest, and that it is shocking to observe that government has paid a blind eye to what is happening at Kagio regarding job losses. He says investigations conducted by his organizations have revealed that Paroget Limited has engaged foreigners in the Human Resources Department who are conducting interviews for employees whom they wish to remain in the company using underhand methods when this is not allowed by the Zambian labor laws. Mr. Nkoma has since called on the provincial minister to take interest in what is happening at Kagio and protect jobs. The Opposition Patriots for Economic Progress, PEP, has unveiled its first ever 119.2 billion kwacha alternative budget for 2018, or 38.3% of the gross domestic product. Party President Sean Tembo says of this amount, 103.3 billion kwacha, or 97.7% of the total budget, would be financed by domestic revenues and 2.4 billion kwacha, or 2.3%, by grants by various cooperating partners. He says there would be no portion of the budget that will be financed by domestic or external borrowing. Mr. Tembo, who is also an economist, says the allocations in this budget are targeted at addressing the issues of poverty alleviation, creating greater capacity for the Zambia Revenue Authority to collect tax revenue, increasing the educational subsidy and job creation. He states that the size of the Zambian economy has shrunk significantly in the past 5 years, from a gross domestic product of $28.5 billion in 2011 to $20.5 billion in 2016, while in the same period the population has increased by about 2.5 million to about 16 million in 2016. Mr. Tembo says this shrinkage in the economy, together with a surge in the total population, has resulted into a deterioration of the per capita income from about $2,100 in 2011 to about $1,280 in 2016. He says by any measure, this is irrefutable evidence that Zambians have become poorer in the last 5 years or so.
The Patriots for Economic Progress hereby proposes an additional special tax of 20% for all alcoholic beverages, an additional special tax of 35% for all processed tobacco products, an additional special tax of 10% on all gross proceeds from gambling by gambling facility owners, such as casinos, an additional special tax of 5% of all gambling winnings by gamblers. Party E, reforms related to non-tax revenue. Venerable countrymen and women, when it comes to non-tax revenue such as fees and levies, there are two primary challenges that this country faces. The first challenge is that of revenue leakages, and the second challenge is that of inadequate exploitation of our potential revenue streams. Our estimates are that about 65% of all non-tax revenue is pilfered at one point or the other and does not reach the treasury. Similarly, we also estimate that the country only utilizes less than half of all its available non-tax revenue streams.
And Mr. Tembo says the issue of national debt needs to be properly managed, as it can easily cause the collapse of the economy. He explains that the primary reason why the economy stagnated in the 20-year period between 1983 and 2003 is because the country was in a debt trap, and it took the completion of the HIPIC program for the debt to be forgiven, thereby getting the country out of the debt trap.
Our economy is currently on a downward spiral. For all intents and purposes, we are already in a debt trap, and it is unlikely that we as a country can consistently generate the revenue that is needed to service our total national debt of about $42 billion without undertaking a total paradigm shift with regard to the way we do what we do. If we are going to survive the current economic situation and safeguard our destiny as a nation, we need to do two things. Firstly, we need to stop pretending that all is well when it isn't. Simply put, we need to face our demons. Secondly, we need to be able to summon all our courage and undertake unprecedented and unorthodox reforms in our economy. We are currently faced with an abnormal situation in which our economy has not stagnated, but it has actually regressed, as evidenced from the drop in our gross domestic product from around $28.5 billion in 2011 to about $20.5 billion in 2016, which is a reduction in the gross domestic product.
Governance activist Leslie Chikose has questioned the silence by the non-governmental organization Coordinating Council NGOCC on the incident at Parliament where Lands Minister Jean Kapata poured a bottle of water on one Member of Parliament Chishimba Kambwili. Mr. Chikose says Ms. Kapata's action some few weeks ago amounts to gender-based violence and should be condemned by the women movement as well as the gender minister. He notes that if it was Mr. Kambili who poured water and who acted in the manner Ms. Kapata did, the country could have seen all sorts of statements condemning the action. Mr. Chikose is urging government to adopt an aggressive stance in fighting all forms of gender-based violence. He has told Q News that it is important that government sends a clear message that there will be no stone left unturned in ensuring that justice is served to victims of all forms of gender-based violence.
Indecent assault, even when you look at the law in the Constitution, it's a very, very serious offense. When you decide to pat the back of a lady, or you decide to use an unpalatable language on a lady, that is a very serious criminal activity. So what happens if now this lady decides to throw water at an honorable man, a member of parliament, in an area which is very much respected by ordinary citizens? It means that really there is a breakdown in the rule of law. There is serious moral decay at that level, where even the laws are actually formed, laws are made, and so on. So it is that high level gender-based violence that infiltrates into the communities to say that really now you see a woman getting a knife and killing a man, you see a man getting a bottle. It is because the moral decay has gone across board from national level to district level and now in the communities. And if the Speaker of the National Assembly does not take this issue of gender-based violence that characterized the happenings between Chimba Kambwili and Honorable Jean Kapata serious.
The opposition National Restoration Party, NAREP, says the ruling Patriotic Front should stop mocking God. NAREP spokesperson Walia Nondo has told QTV News that even after hiking the price of fuel, the PF government decided to ask Zambians to pray. He says the ruling party should understand the pain the people are going through. Mr. Nonde says most people are failing to have 3 decent meals in a day, while those in government can afford to have decent meals. He has advised the PF government to reduce the high cost of living in the country.
And this is the way we're going to live. PF has promised Zambians a lot of things, so what we expect from them, please, can you really look into the plight of the people that voted for you? We are tired of scandals. We are tired of corruption. We are tired of stealing. And in the morning you wake up and tell people to say, let's go and pray. How can you reconcile? How can you pray? Which God is going to listen to you that today you steal and tomorrow you want to call for prayers? Our God is not going to be mocked. So we are appealing to the PF government to show leadership. Let them be serious about national management. Otherwise, what we are seeing is just chipante-pante, and they feel, because they have money and they feel everybody has. Ministers cannot feel the impact. All these guys that are in government cannot feel the impact. So when we complain, they are quick to conclude that because we are in the opposition and because, we just want to oppose. We are saying this because we are experiencing what an ordinary citizen is experiencing.
Government has advised higher education institutions who have not yet submitted their learning programs for accreditation to do so before the end of this year. Higher Education Permanent Secretary Mavuto Sakala says this is aimed at fostering quality assurance in higher education institutions, as well as assure the public on the quality of learning programs in the institutions. Mr. Sakala says so far 253 learning programs have been submitted, of which 165 programs have been allocated to program experts for review since the introduction of the accreditation of learning programs in June 2017. He says this will also help students in their respective institutions to know whether the programs they are pursuing are accredited or not. Speaking during the opening of a conference on management of higher education institutions in Zambia, Mr. Sakala says higher education in Zambia is key in realizing a prosperous middle-income nation by 2030.
All of us here are therefore entrusted with a scaled opportunity that goes beyond the tethers of higher education institutions from which we hail. We hope to pave a way that will have a positive impact on higher education in Zambia through fora such as this conference. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, higher education in Zambia is key in realizing a prosperous middle-income nation by 2030. And it is because of this crucial fact that the Ministry of Higher Education places exceeding value on ensuring quality education, higher education specifically. A quality that can only be guaranteed by you, the higher education institutions, in collaboration with Higher Education Authority. All of us here are therefore entrusted with a scaled opportunity that goes beyond the tethers of higher education institutions from which we hail.
Speaking at the same event, Higher Education Authority Director General Professor Stephen Simukanga praised the government's unwavering support to provide higher quality education in the country. Professor Simukanga says it is for this reason that the authority will next year host a higher education forum where higher education institutions will be able to showcase what they are offering to the public.
The government's commitment to higher education is unwavering, and your presence, sir, highly attests to that commitment and reassures everyone gathered here of government's unwavering support to higher education and its commitment to bettering the lives of its citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, the Higher Education Authority intends to position itself as a major player in higher education in Zambia, and we affirm that we shall continue to host these gatherings systematically in order to engage the higher education institutions. Thus, together, forge a path that will better the higher education in Zambia. As I mentioned in my introductory remarks earlier on, next year we intend to host a higher education forum where higher education institutions will exhibit and showcase themselves, at the same time run a conference on the site. So that will be a big one. It's up to you to come and showcase, to be open to the public, so that the public can know what is happening in your institutions.
Siavonga UPND Member of Parliament Darius Mulunda has called on the government through the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries to expedite construction works on deep tanks in the district. Mr. Mulunda tells QTV News that it is saddening that out of the 11 deep tanks given to Siavonga district, only one is about 95% complete. He says works on the remaining 10 have stalled with no contractor on site. Mr. Mulunda says he has engaged the minister in charge to ensure that contractors go back to the sites to finish the works.
And then we have 11 deep tanks. And you know, this is so painful. The government has given Siavonga constituency 11 deep tanks. And only one has reached about 95% completion. All of them have stalled. There is no money and we don't even see the contractors around. So I'm actually, I met the minister, Minister Katambo, and he told me to make a submission, which I'll be making, I hope next week, so that those deep tanks, those projects are revisited. And I hope once those ones are done, then it will be okay. Then in terms of communication towers, I made a submission as well, and I was told this week that next week the team that is going to come to site the projects, to site the places where those towers will be put, the team will be sent into Siavonga next week. So I hope the deep tanks will be worked on, and the communication towers will be worked on, and then we want to do a sport works in terms of the feeder roads.
To end the news, we'll take a look at stories making headlines. The opposition UPND has cancelled its planned Kanyama rally in Lusaka in view of the cholera outbreak in the area. National Development Minister Lucky Malusa faces disciplinary action for issuing disparaging remarks on the 42 fire tenders procured by government. And government has challenged opposition political parties to join in finding solutions to the country's socio-economic challenges. That's all we had in our news. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. But for more news, you can join our website, or you can go to our website, qfmzambia.com. Bye-bye.